Hello, sports fans. It is Monday, March the 23rd, the year 2015. And as always, a lot to get to in the sports world, so let's get it going right now. Great to be back with you guys. Hope you had a terrific weekend. Hope you've been watching the NCAA tournament. A lot of drama, a lot of close games, some big upsets, really fun stuff. I mean, look what happened on Thursday. Purdue, 7-point lead with less than a minute left, melts down and loses. UNC barely holds off Harvard. Baylor, 12-point lead with a couple minutes to go, gets outscored 13-0 the rest of the way by Georgia State. Baylor out. LSU blows the game to NC State. We'll get to NC State in a second. How about SMU melting down to UCLA and then getting that goaltending call called against them? How about Iowa State, who just ran through the Big 12 tournament, 4-point lead and the ball, 2 minutes to go, cannot hold it against UAB. So a lot of wacky games. Let's get to where we are right now. We are in the Sweet 16. Let's start in the Midwest region. These games will be played in Cleveland on Thursday and Saturday. First game, you will have Kentucky against West Virginia. Kentucky, of course, bombed Hampton. They struggled a little bit with Cincinnati in the first half, then pulled away in the second half. I mean, obviously, Kentucky, huge favorite here. But remember, West Virginia, a few years ago, knocked Kentucky out. Remember when Kentucky had Wall and Cousins in that big-time team? It was Bob Huggins and West Virginia that knocked them out. West Virginia, of course, hung on against Buffalo, then played a very nice game against Maryland last night. West Virginia forces a lot of turnovers. They're a very deep team. They're a very tough team to play against. They're a type of team kind of like NC State, North Carolina. They can beat anyone or lose to anyone. So, interesting game there between Kentucky and West Virginia coming up. Obviously, Kentucky a huge favorite, but like I said a few years ago, West Virginia knocked out Kentucky. All right, in the other game in that Midwest bracket, you're going to have Notre Dame against Wichita State. Notre Dame struggled in both of their games. Struggled against Northeastern and was very lucky to beat Butler in overtime. Butler had 2 chances to win that game at the end of regulation. Notre Dame could easily be out. Give them credit. They survived and they advanced. They now play Wichita State. Wichita State beat Indiana, and then they beat arch rival in-state Kansas. I mean, Wichita State was elated. They finally got to play Kansas, and they beat Kansas. Now listen, I said it for a while now. This was not a vintage Kansas team. I did not think they were a Final Four team. I thought they would be picked off before the Final Four. I really like what Wichita State has done this year. They are a really solid program, and they were so happy that they got the chance not only to play Kansas, but knock them off. And I'll tell you, Wichita State dominated that game in the second half. So that sets up a very intriguing game, Wichita State and Notre Dame. That is a very interesting game. I'm sure Notre Dame will be a slight favorite, but I'll tell you, the way both of those teams played in the first couple of rounds wouldn't shock me at all if Wichita State won. As far as the West region, these games will be played at the Staples Center in LA on Thursday and Saturday. You will have Wisconsin and North Carolina, which is an absolutely tremendous game. Wisconsin knocked off Coastal Carolina, struggled a little bit with Oregon, pulled away at the end. North Carolina hung on against Harvard. I mean, Harvard had a 3-pointer that was going to potentially win that game. That's how close North Carolina was to losing to Harvard. And then North Carolina beat Arkansas. It kind of controlled that game for most of the way. Wisconsin, North Carolina is a tremendous matchup. North Carolina, like I said, can play with anyone, has a lot of talent, but they're up and down. Wisconsin, you know what you're going to get, a meat and potatoes team. They're very consistent. They don't beat themselves. That's why I favor Wisconsin, but that should be a tremendous game. North Carolina definitely has a shot to win that game. And the other game in the West bracket, you have Xavier against Arizona. Xavier, the only team remaining from the Big East. Xavier beat Ole Miss, and then they beat Georgia State. So it hasn't been exactly, the hardest road for Xavier, but hey, you play who you play. Xavier against Arizona. Arizona took care of Texas Southern, and then they pulled away from Ohio State in the second half. Of course, Ohio State had knocked off Virginia Commonwealth. Arizona against Xavier, you got to figure Arizona is a huge favorite, especially out there in LA. That's going to be all Wildcat fans. Arizona should take care of Xavier. They should be a big favorite. As far as the East over in Syracuse, these games will be Friday and Sunday. First matchup, you will have NC State and Louisville. NC State, of course, had the dramatic comeback against LSU. NC State was dead and buried against LSU. LSU should have won that game, blew the game. Nice comeback by NC State. And then NC State follows it up with the upset of the tournament. They knock out number 1 seed Villanova. And I thought for much of that game, NC State outplayed Villanova in that game. That shows you how crazy this tournament is. NC State should have been out against LSU, and instead they survived that game. They beat the number 1 seed Villanova, and here they are in the Sweet 16. The highs and lows of these tournaments, a couple minutes changes every game. You see these teams melting down all the time. So NC State pulls the shocker of the tournament. They knock out Villanova. NC State will now play Louisville. Louisville hung on against UC Irvine. They were very fortunate to win that game. And then they kind of handled Northern Iowa last night. I know a lot of people liked Northern Iowa in that game. I actually picked Louisville out of respect for Rick Pitino. Louisville kind of was leading, most of the game. They kind of handled Northern Iowa. So Louisville, NC State, very interesting game. Battle of 2 ACC teams. I did check. They did play this year. NC State actually won at Louisville. So being NC State won at Louisville, already knocked out Villanova, NC State's got to feel very confident that they can beat this Louisville team. And this is not a great Louisville team. They have trouble scoring, but they play tremendous defense, and they have Rick Pitino. The other matchup in the East in Syracuse, Michigan State against Oklahoma. How about Tom Izzo and Michigan State? Year after year after year, no matter what type of team Tom Izzo has, he always seems to be in the Sweet 16. No matter what seed he is, he always peaks at the end of the year. I could see Michigan State in that Big Ten tournament starting to make their move. They should have really beat Wisconsin in the title game, let that game slip away, but you could see the signs. Michigan State always peaks as the season comes to an end. They are always playing their best ball at the end of the year. Tom Izzo is a brilliant coach. He's won a national title. Every year, Michigan State does something. They beat Georgia in the first round, and then they beat Virginia for the second straight year, knocked the Cavaliers out for the second straight year. I mean, if you're Virginia, you're sitting there going, how did we draw Michigan State again? Not only that, but how did we get them in the second round? I mean, I could see maybe seeing them in the Elite Eight. They got Michigan State in the second round, and Michigan State had knocked them out last year. Michigan State was way better than a 7 seed. I mean, Michigan State, they should have been a higher seed than this. I mean, Michigan State is a solid team, and you have to take Tom Izzo into account here. Every year his teams make a run. You have to factor that in when you seed Michigan State. I mean, my goodness, a 7 seed? I mean, that's why I said when I was picking these brackets last week, if you're looking for a surprise from the East, look at Michigan State. They do it every year. They will play Oklahoma. Oklahoma, one of 2 Big 12 teams left. Oklahoma dispatched Albany, and then they hung on and beat Dayton last night. So Michigan State, Oklahoma, very interesting game. By the way, Kruger for Oklahoma has now taken 4 programs to the Sweet 16. That's very, very impressive. He's taken Oklahoma, he's taken UNLV, he's taken Florida, and I believe he's taken Kansas State to the Sweet 16. Kruger can coach. I give the advantage, though, to Michigan State. You can see it happening here. You can see this bracket opening up for Michigan State. This bracket has been blown apart with Villanova and Virginia out. To me, any one of these 4 teams can make it, but I'm going to favor Michigan State. I know what Tom Izzo can do in this tournament. All right, and as far as the South, these games will be from Houston on Friday and Sunday. You will have Utah against Duke. Utah beat Stephen F. Austin, and then they beat Georgetown. Utah is having a solid year. Duke, of course, just dismantled San Diego State last night. Duke looks really, really good. Okafor was amazing last night. The Knicks fans up here can't wait for Okafor to play for the Knicks last year. Now, I know they got to win the lottery and all that, but the Knicks fans are dying to have Okafor on their team. But Duke looks really, really solid, playing really top-notch ball. Krzyzewski says the team is not tired at all. They're peaking at the right time. So you have to favor Duke over Utah, although I like what Utah has done with their program. And then the other game in the South, you will have UCLA against Gonzaga. UCLA, who no one thought should be in the tournament, including me, has the improbable win against SMU where they come back and rally, and then they have the fortunate break where they get that goaltending call against SMU. So they escaped there, and then they end up playing UAB, who knocked out Iowa State, and UAB looked like, they had left their game against Iowa State because UCLA just blew UAB out, and UCLA is in the Sweet 16. No one even thought they should be in the tournament. Here they are in the Sweet 16, and they will play Gonzaga. Gonzaga took care of North Dakota State, and then they bombed Iowa. And remember, these two teams have a history together. Remember a few years ago when Gonzaga looked like they were going to the Final Four with Adam Morrison? Had a huge lead against UCLA. UCLA had that big comeback. Adam Morrison had a breakdown on the court when there was still time left in the game, and UCLA knocked Gonzaga out, broke the Gonzaga fans' hearts. Well, here we go again. We're going to have UCLA and Gonzaga going at it again. You have to think Gonzaga is going to get through here. I mean, you have to. But, I mean, just like Kentucky and West Virginia, you got a little history between these teams. So that's where you are right now in the Sweet 16. I mean, you're going to have some really tremendous games. Wisconsin, North Carolina is an absolutely tremendous game. To me, that is the big game of next week. I mean, they're all big, but that is like the must-watch game, Wisconsin and North Carolina. To me, looking at it, you got to go with Kentucky over West Virginia. You got to go Wisconsin over North Carolina, Arizona over Xavier. I'm going to say NC State over Louisville just because they've beaten them already. I'm going to go with Michigan State over Oklahoma. I'm going to go with Duke over Utah. I'm going to go with Gonzaga over UCLA. Toughest game on the board to me is that Notre Dame-Wichita State game because Notre Dame did not play well the first two rounds, and Wichita State looked really good. I'm going to give that game a toss-up. Should be some tremendous basketball. I can't wait for Thursday and Friday, and of course over the weekend. And it's funny, I was thinking about this over the last couple of days. It's the same coaches back in the Sweet 16 all the time. Calipari and Huggins. How good is Huggy Bear Huggins as a coach? The guy is a tremendous coach, getting West Virginia to Sweet 16 again. This is not one of West Virginia's better teams. I mean, this is not one of his best teams, yet they're in the Sweet 16 again. By the way, I love Huggins on the sidelines. He wears that track suit. He doesn't wear a suit. He wears, that sweat outfit. That's how I would be coaching. I'd be in my, sweatsuit over there on the sidelines. Bob Knight never wore a suit. Rick Majerus never wore a suit. I like that. Bob Huggins is over there in his sweatsuit. Tremendous coach. Bray, tremendous coach for Notre Dame. Bo Ryan, how good he is. You got Roy Williams again in the Sweet 16. Miller for Arizona. He did it with Xavier. Now Arizona. Pitino's always there, and this is not one of Louisville's better teams. Tom Izzo, I spoke about him before. The guy is an absolute genius every single year. Michigan State makes a run in the tournament. I don't care how many losses they have. Kruger, I mentioned that as well. 4 teams to the Sweet 16. Krzyzewski, do I need to say any more? Alford now has gotten UCLA to the Sweet 16, did some things when he was coaching New Mexico. You have a few for Gonzaga, they're always around. So you always have this same group of coaches all the time. Even Gottfried at North Carolina State is a good tournament coach. Mack at Xavier, good coach. Wichita State coach Marshall is really building up that program. And Kristoviak at Utah. So you have some really solid coaches in this, and a lot of the same names that we see year after year after year. Also, the quick rundown of what teams made it from what conference. There were 5 ACC teams that made it to the Sweet 16, 3 Pac-12 teams, and considering they only had 4 teams in the tournament, that's a nice job by the Pac-12. You can debate whether UCLA deserved to be there or not. Pac-12 has 3 teams in the Sweet 16. Big 12 has 2. They've been disappointing. Big 10 has 2. Big East, very disappointing with 1. SEC, of course, has Kentucky. The Valley, Wichita State, and the WCC has Gonzaga. So the big winner as far as the conferences right now is the ACC, but the Pac-12 getting 3 in is a nice job by them as well, considering they only had 4 teams. Okay, so that's where you guys are. You guys are all caught up. We got a little break, from the NCAA tournament after 4 straight days. Actually, 6 straight days if you count the play-in games. Got a break till Thursday. If you guys need your college basketball fix, you got the NIT on. I don't know if you guys get into that. Of course, you got the NBA. We're coming down the home stretch of the NBA. Teams fighting for those last spots. Same thing with the NHL. Keep an eye on both the West and the Eastern Conference. The West has a couple teams battling for that 8th spot. How about the Eastern Conference? Boston and Ottawa. Ottawa looks like they're going to pass the Bruins. I never thought that was going to happen. The Bruins have hit hard times, and Ottawa is flying right now. Never thought Ottawa was going to catch Boston. It could happen. So keep an eye on all that. You got the races in the NBA and the NHL winding down. If you need some college basketball, you got the NIT and, of course, the NCAA kicks off again on Thursday. Then you got games Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then we will be in the Final Four. It is a fun 2 weeks. I love March Madness. I love this tournament. It is so exciting. A lot of drama, a lot of upsets. I mean, that's what the one-and-done format does for you. So great stuff there. You guys are all caught up. You guys are all set. Thanks so much for the support. I got so many messages the last few days, you know, going back and forth about who everyone thinks is going to make the Final Four and the upset picks. And you guys do a great job. Some of you guys had some great upsets. I know one of my loyal listeners had UAB. He was like the only one that had UAB. So it's a great job by my listeners as always, and I really appreciate the support from you guys. You guys stay happy, healthy, and safe. Enjoy the games. Take a little break. We got the tournament coming back on Thursday. It'll be here before you know it. You know how quickly time goes by. Thursday will be here before you know it. We'll be back in the tournament. You guys enjoy the game. Stay safe. I'll be back with you Monday. We'll recap it all, and we'll look forward to the Final Four. You guys enjoy your week. Talk to you soon. Take care.